Hi everybody, this is Eugene O'Loughlin, lecturer in computing at the National College of Ireland, and welcome to my series of short videos on problem-solving techniques. In video number 1, we're going to take a look at Pareto analysis. First of all, what is Pareto analysis? Well, many of us will know it more commonly as the 80-20 rule. It was first proposed by Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when he observed that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. And he came up with the Pareto principle because when he applied this rule to other countries, he found that the same ratio, 80-20, applied. What the Pareto principle teaches us to do is it's going to display the critical few from the trivial many causes of a problem. So the critical few is what we're after here. They are the 20%. We can apply this to almost anything from the science of management to the physical world. For example, 20% of your inventory takes up 80% of your warehouse space. What are the 80% of your inventory that comes from 20% of your suppliers? 80% of a company's income is generated by 20% of its customers, while 80% of a company's business will be generated by 20% of the sales team. And quite often, we don't know how to focus in on the important critical few that make up the 20%. And the value of Pareto principle for anybody like a business analyst is that it reminds you to focus on the 20% that matters. So we use Pareto analysis when we want to prioritize potential causes of a problem and establish and verify these causes and effects. It helps us to identify improvement opportunities and also teaches us to reach consensus on what needs to be addressed first. And finally, it can be used quite successfully as a measure for the success of any corrective action that we take as a result of our analysis. So how do you do a Pareto analysis? Well, the first thing to do is identify the data source. We have an example of a Pareto chart here on the screen, and the data are just labelled A, B, C, D, E, F, G across the bottom of the diagram. So these could be complaints, they could be defects, they could be breakages, they could be occurrences. Next, we calculate the percentages for totals of each type of defect, and we draw our Pareto chart like you see here. On the left hand side, we put the actual frequency of each item. So you can see in this particular example, item A is occurring 65 times, item B is occurring 15 times, and so on. And on the right hand side then, we show the cumulative percentage frequency of each of these items, and this of course will always end up at 100%, as indeed our chart does here. We draw the bars, the horizontal bars, in accordance with the total number of defects and construct the cumulative line, which you can see with dots on it here. And what we're looking for is to find where on this line the 80% mark occurs. Let's take a look at a short example to help us illustrate how Pareto analysis can be used in problem solving. Let's say, for example, we have a list of hotel room complaints like those that you see here. These type of data can be gathered from customer surveys or feedback forms that you will regularly find in hotels. And in this particular one here, we've got numbers of complaints for different categories like heating, reservations, decor, room service, and so on. And we want to be able to tell, using Pareto analysis, which are the critical complaints that should be tackled and which ones are the trivial ones. So when we look at working with these data, the first thing that we need to do is identify what 20% of effects are causing 80% of the problems. So we rank order our complaints according to the number of complaints, with the highest at the top and the lowest down at the bottom. As you can see in our first two columns here, we have our types of complaints listed and the number of complaints for each category. And then in the next column we calculate the cumulative number of complaints. So we add, for example, the room service to reservations, that gives us 442 complaints. We add in cleaning, and that gives us 553 complaints. And we go down the list until we can see we have a total of 691 complaints. And then in the rightmost column then we calculate the cumulative percentage for each of these. We can see here that room service accounts for 41.5% of all complaints. We add this to the reservation, that accounts for 64%, and we add in cleaning to room service and reservations. We can see that the first three items here account for exactly 80% of the total number of complaints. Now, there are 15 categories of complaints here, so 3 out of 15 means that 20% of our types of complaints are being caused by these three. So in this particular instance, the Pareto principle applies. It tells us that those three items, which are 20% of all items, account for 80% of all our problems. So this is not telling us any surprises, because all we got to do is look at the number of complaints, but it helps us to focus on the ones that count most. When we draw a Pareto chart based on these data, this is what we get here. We've got our number of complaints down along the left hand side. We can see, for example, room service, which is 287 complaints, and the bar for that listed in grey here. And we plot the number of complaints in each category in a descending order by frequency until we get down to the end, documentation and other. And on the right hand side axis, we show the cumulative percentage for each item, and once again that will reach up to 100. So on this, we look for the point on the cumulative line where the 80% mark occurs, and we can see here that it's occurring after the cleaning option here, confirming that the first three items of types of complaints account for 80% of our total. So this tells us then to concentrate on those three items, which account for 20% of the different types. In an effort to reduce the overall number of complaints, these three areas here would be the ones that we should prioritize for improvement. It doesn't mean we ignore all the other types of complaints, but the most dramatic effect will be shown if we tackle these ones first. You can learn more about Pareto analysis and other problem-solving techniques and strategies from my new book, An Introduction to Business Systems Analysis, Problem-Solving Techniques and Strategies, published by the Liffey Press, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble and other online stores. This is Eugene O'Loughlin. Thanks for your attention. I hope you found this information useful.